Today's topic is splitting a block. There are going to be times when you're doing a retaining wall or even pavers where you're going to want to split some material. And obviously the easiest way to split it is with a mechanical splitter. But if you don't have one of them on site, you can use a hammer and chisel, which is what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have the proper safety equipment. We're hammering on these blocks, we're going to have chips flying, so we want to make sure that we have good safety glasses. And I do recommend gloves, as well as in the past I've had hand chips come across and cut open my hands as well. So let's get started and we'll show you how to do this. When splitting a block on site with a hammer and chisel, there's a few considerations you have to look at before you get going. One of them is the tools. There's several types of chisels on the market. This one happens to be a brick chisel, and it has a straight back and an angled front. This can work for splitting block, but it's not the ideal. Takes a little bit longer, a little bit more muscle. The better one is this cold chisel here, where again, it's probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4 inches wide, but it's got a V blade so that's got angles on both sides. And this is the one that I prefer and the one that I have the most luck with. And then the hammer is important as well. I think you're somewhere in the 3 to 5 pound range is going to give you the most effective split. You don't want to use a framing hammer, although it does work. It's going to take you quite a long time to get through a 6-inch block like this. So the other consideration is the block itself. So here we have a retaining wall with cores in it, and this can be split right down the center, but really not able to split anywhere near the cores themselves. And then some wall block is solid like this, where we can pretty much split it anywhere along here that we want to. So depending on the type of block you have will determine how easy it'll be to split and where you're going to be able to split it themselves. So we're going to go ahead and start with the retaining wall block here, and we'll get it marked and then start splitting it. So when marking a block, we just get a marking tool of your choice. In this case, I'm just going to use the corner of the chisel, and I'm going to have a straight edge. With this block, we actually have a center line marked on it, so we're just going to go ahead and line our straight edge up on that center line, put that down, use the corner of the chisel and drag through, and it gives me a nice mark to work off of. So then I'm going to flip the block over, and I'm going to utilize that center line again and go ahead and mark this side. And that gives me a starting point to go ahead and start hammering down and get this block split. So I'm going to go ahead and start hitting with the hammer, and essentially all I'm trying to do right now is give my block a stress relief that'll allow the split to happen in this spot. So I'm just going to go in, and this is just lightly tapping at this point, letting the hammer do the work, following my line. And this is not about how hard you hit. This is just getting the block to a point where it's going to want to split on this line. I'll do it on the top of the block here. So now I'm going to go ahead and flip the block over so that I can do the bottom side. I've got my line marked. Going to go ahead again and just give myself a little bit of a groove. So we are creating a weak spot in the block right now. I would also recommend for chisels having this hand guard, because if you're like me, you tend to miss a few hits and it does really protect your hand. All right, so now I'm going to flip this up. I've got a groove on the bottom of the block, I've got a groove on the top, and I'll flip it up on its face. And this particular manufacturer actually gives us a score line in the back, and That's nice because now I can take and start hitting down, starting to put a little bit more muscle into the hit. So as I'm hitting, I'm progressively getting more and more, and there you can see the block actually popped. So one more hit and I can separate that out into two pieces, okay? So now we actually have what could be used as a corner unit or the end of a wall so that we have a finished appearance on both sides. So now you can see we've got two usable pieces. But with this particular product, we're not quite done yet. As you can see, the split that we've created is very sharp and very clean, but the front of the product is actually distressed or tumbled. And so if you have a distressed, tumbled appearance to your block, there's one more step I like to do to kind of finish off and make this match everything. And that's just kind of doing an on-site distress. So this clean, sharp edge right here, I'm just gonna take a hammer and chip away at it to knock off that sharp edge, and now it's gonna match the front of the unit much more cleanly. Do that on the top and the bottom. And now this face is ready to be used in your wall, and the end of the wall or the corner is gonna match the rest of it. So now we're gonna move on to the double-sided unit and split this off to finish the end of the wall. There's a lot of similarities to this, but there are a couple key things I want to point out that are different than doing the standard retaining wall block. So I've already marked this and got the top and bottom marked, and I'm gonna go ahead and start hammering just like I did on the other unit. And again, we are looking at not about how powerful you hit it, but how many times you're hitting it. We're just trying to get a stress relief. One thing I do want to point out as we're getting pretty close to the end of this unit is the more meat that you're splitting off, the better your chances of success are. So we're getting out here pretty close to the end of this block, so it may or may not split exactly the way we want it to. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and take a few extra hits, make sure we put enough stress in this. Okay, now I'm gonna flip it over, we'll do the other side. So now I flipped the block, we're gonna go ahead and put our score line on this side. I think we've got our score line in there, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it up like I did on the other block, and we're going to hit down from the back. So we want to make sure that I'm connecting these two lines, so just to do that, I'm going to put little scores here and here, and then I can start scoring across the top of the block. Because of the rock face, it takes a little longer to get yourself a score line. And no worries on that, because that's our throwaway piece. All right, and so we were too close and we're not getting that clean break, but we can fix that. Come down on this side. Whew. All right. So we did get a split, and this will happen occasionally where it goes a little bit deep, a little bit deeper than you wanted it to. And then you got a decision to make if you want to keep this unit, fix it up or split another one, because it does happen. You're never going to be 100% on this. But good thing about a tumbled wall unit is, again, I can clean up this edge a little bit and see if we can hide that. And this is actually where we could use the brick chisel, where it's that straight edge, and come in and just knock that line straight. All right, so this is the split block that we were having a little bit of trouble with, but I thought I'm gonna go ahead and test fit it into the wall and see how it looks. Because the good news is, with tumbled or distressed product, you can get away with a lot more, because it's supposed to be irregular and out of proportion. So you can see here, we're probably a little deep on it, but with a little bit of, spend a few minutes with the hammer, maybe the chisel, and we actually can get it to blend pretty nice into the wall itself. So I can bring the other pieces in and see how the finished wall end will look. And that actually turned out pretty decent. So you need to make the decision if you want to split that over again, or if you can make it blend in with the end of the wall. But typically, you work with it long enough, you can get it to fit pretty well. And that is how you split a block with a hammer and chisel. So for additional information, go to outdoorlivingsupply.net to find a location near you, or you can email me at the email address on your screen below.